So welcome to part 2 of the bread punch video. I've got my bait with me and I'm on a lovely little pond in the middle of some sort of, well, it's almost woodland, on the edge of some woodland really. It's a lovely spot. The weather's a bit iffy, it's drizzling, it's a Monday morning, 10 degrees, which isn't too bad seeing as it's almost Christmas. But yeah, I'm just going to see if I can catch a few fish on bread punch, and I might kick things off on the whip. So I'll show you the setup, show you what I'm going to be feeding, and yeah, see if we can catch a few fish. So I'm already set up with my whip. I've got my 4 metre acolyte whip here, just plumbed the depth, and I've got around about, I'd say about 4 foot in front of me. And all I've done is I've plumbed up so that I'm just about an inch on the bottom. So basically this is the swim. It's a lovely little pond, as I said, nestling in some woodland, just on the edge of some farm fields. Nice spot. I will be putting my brolly up in a bit because it is drizzling. But yeah, I've got a nice little open area in front of me, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a few roach and potentially some skimmers there as well. So this is the side tray. I've got the lovely liquidised bread there. I've got the hook bait there, that's the microwave version. I'm going to kick off with that, which is a bit thinner. I've got a pack of hook baits there and the all important bread punch. I use these Drennan punches, I'll show you the name there. And they range from 2.5mm to 7mm. You can get a bigger version as well, but they're a fantastic bit of kit. And I'll probably kick off with, I don't know, maybe a 4mm. You can go smaller if things are harder and bigger if things are going really well. So to kick things off, I've got a 4mm punch, and all I'm going to do, pop it in there, give it a little twist, and then you'll see that in the end of there we've got the pellet of bread. There is a little slot in the side of the bread punch that I'm going to use to hook the piece of bread. So that's sort of stage one. And what I'll also show you next is how I'm actually going to feed it. So we've got this lovely liquidised bread. Now there are various ways of doing this. If you're fishing deeper waters, then you can add things like gravel and also white breadcrumb, which makes the sort of mix heavier. But I want this nice and light and fluffy, and it's hopefully going to create a lovely cloud in the water. And what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm going to just gently put a ball in that size. So you can see it's just holding together as I squeeze it. I'm not doing it too tight. So I thought I'd just show you what that liquidised bread looks like when you have to put it in the water. Can you see? It floats for a minute or two and then just sinks down, creating a magnificent cloud. And that's why bread punch is so effective. So I'm using the size 20 hook to kick things off, and that's the pellet of bread punch on the hook. So I've got my float out there as a marker. I'm fishing a dark patch. I've got a yellow tip float so it stands out nicely against it, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in that ball, and hopefully you might see that it just sort of floats on the surface for a little while and then just slowly falls through the water. Right, so let's kick things off. With bread punch fishing, normally it's a really instant reaction that you get. The bread cloud seems to attract fish instantly, and you usually expect to bite quite quickly. Now, I've not actually fished bread punch on this water before, so I'm not certain of how they're going to react. And obviously we're talking about sort of back end of December now, and it's a bit unusual. The weather's a little bit unusual for the time of year. It's quite mild. I'd hope that that would be positive, but you never know with fish, do you? And that's a bite and the tiniest of fish. Wonderful. Well, it's a bite. It's one on the clicker. That's one tiny fish in the net. A little roach, but a bite's a bite, and that came, well, about 30 seconds after casting in. There's one tiny roach and a missed bite. I've just put a 5mm punch on now, just to see what happens basically. Kick things off on a 4mm, which is quite small really. There's obviously fish now in the peg. One or two bubbles popping up as well. Might have been a fish on the drop, that, because it didn't seem to settle correctly. I know that when you've got a 5mm piece on, it does fall a bit more slowly than when you've got a 4mm, because of the sort of increased size. Let's just try that again. I am conscious I am fishing just to the right of where I've fed as well, so I'm going to just cast more across into that shadowed area. So I'm going to sink my line a little bit. There is a bit of a drift on this pond. It's quite interesting really, because there's a stream that comes in just to my left, and there's an outflow across on the opposite bank from where I am now, and it does create a sort of circular flow around the pond. I'm just going to feel my way in. One of the things that's very easy to do with bread punch fishing is overfeed. So I'm just going to play it by ear and see what happens before I'm tempted to put another ball in. And when I do put another ball in, it will be a much smaller sized ball. But we're a bit of a way off yet. I'm just going to see what happens to the peg. That was a little indication on there. Again, there are not just roach, but there's skimmers in here as well, so getting one or two maybe signs of skimmers in the peg, tiny little bubbles. Well, we've also got some gudgeon in here as well, so they can create the same sort of bubbling effect. Feels to me like there might be a fish on that because it's lifted up, so I haven't quite got the presentation I want right. I am fishing a sort of strung out rig, pretty much all in the bottom half of the rig, this shot. So I was hoping to get down to the deeper layers where they might be the slightly better stamp fish than the skimmers maybe. We'll see. There's definitely activity in there. Let me just struggling a little bit with that sinking the line. If you don't sink your line, then the presentation's all off, and you know it needs to be right to get bites, so it's important that you do sink your line, especially when you've got a little bit of a toe on the water or a slight breeze. As I say, it's usually a very instant sort of technique, this bread punch fishing, but that doesn't mean that, you know, you could try it and not get bites on it and then come back to it an hour or two later and your peg be full of fish willing to take bread punch. I have noticed that on places like the canal, because sometimes you're expecting a bite instantly and don't get one, and it can be because you've got pike in your peg, so the roach haven't settled, and when the pike have moved away, maybe an hour or two even later, you can fish bread punch and get instant bites like you'd expect when you're first sort of casting in. So I think I'm going to need to dot that float down a little bit. I'm getting a feeling that there is fish on there. There might be small ones because the float's doing a little bit of a dance. It's not quite settling right, but we'll see what's happening. Just switched my action camera off and I got the second fish. Wasn't settling right. A little bit bigger roach. That's 2 in the net. So all I seem to be getting at the moment are these tiny little roach that are hardly making an indication on the float, to be honest. I think they're just grabbing hold of it and just sort of sitting there. So I've changed the depth a few times and just changed round the rig a little bit. Still getting the same sort of response, so what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to put another ball of liquidised bread in just to see what happens. Let's pop another bit of bait on. I've been swapping and changing with the size of the punch as well. I've gone from 4, 5, 6, and it doesn't seem to make a lot of difference really. So I think what I'm going to do is pop that out there, a bit of a marker, and then just going to put another little nugget and liquidised breading. There we go. Probably half the size of my first feed. Just to see if I can attract a few better stamp fish in the peg. Lift it out and drop it in through that cloud. So I've got my brolly up now. It's going to keep my bait drier. It's getting a bit soggy in the bait tray there. It's another fish. So I'd fed that other ball of ground bait and still getting bites, but the stamp of the fish is certainly not getting any bigger. How many have I got now on the clicker? I've had a dozen fish. Well, check that out, what a lovely gudgeon. I just changed my shotting pattern. I put a bulk arrangement now, bulk shot, about 18 inches from the hook, see if I can bypass those small roach. And first chuck I've got a gudgeon. Beautiful, look at that, aren't they magnificent things? I've decided to give the rod a go. I've been fishing the whip, but there's a really strong crosswind and it's making presentation a bit of a nightmare really. So I thought I'd just have a little go on the float rod. So just, oh, there we go. First one on the rod. So on this rod it's a strung out pattern, very light. I think number 10s, a couple of number 10s down the line. So I had a first bite there, which is positive. This rig I've set it up more up in the water, so probably, I don't know, maybe a foot off bottom. The whip rig, in order to avoid, or try to avoid those smaller roach, I'd created a bit of a bulk setup, a bulk shotting pattern, and fishing pretty much on the deck, and well, between an inch over and a couple of inches off the bottom. This is much higher up in the water and falling much more gently through the water, so let's see how I do with this. So the wind's sort of kicking up now from right to left. You can see the ripple on the water. It's actually got quite cold. I think even though it's 10 degrees, that fairly strong breeze and this sort of damp air, it makes it, ooh, there we go. The roach in the net, that's good. Alright, well, we're catching them on the rod, which is good. And to be honest, I didn't really bring all my whip rigs with me. I just had one setup really, just for a shortish session. I thought I'd just bring one rig along. So I didn't have a chance to experiment with that whip rig as much as I'd liked. But the rod, yeah, definitely seems to be the way. Another little indication on the float there. That's a bit better. Hey, another little gudgeon. I hope you've enjoyed this little video about bread punch fishing. Before I show you the final net, I would like to say a great big thanks to everybody that's subscribed to the channel. It's been my first 6 months on YouTube and I've been blown away with the support, both the subscribers and the sharing of videos and the comments and the positivity. So thank you very, very much, do appreciate it. Have a great festive season, look out for more videos and I will show you the final net and the final tally now. Thanks very much, all the best. So that's the final net. We've got 80 fish, mostly roach, well 77 roach and 3 gudgeon. And that's what you want on a cold December day You want a few bites, don't you?